The year is 1989. You hear the soft rasp of an inline-six waking from a long, precise slumber. A mechanical voice that is equal parts refinement and latent menace. This is not a shouty, brutish muscle car. It is a grand tourer that learned how to be a sports car. And it did so wearing a wedge-shaped silhouette, pop-up headlight, and the quiet confidence of a machine that knows it was engineered to surprise you. This is the 1989 Toyota Supra, the A70, a car that sits at a curious crossroad. Part luxury, part tuner darling, entirely Toyota in its execution, and wholly deserving of the reverence it receives today. Picture it, clean, purposeful line, a long nose that promises balance, a cockpit that wraps around you like a driver's glove, and a rear that ends with a tasteful spoiler, hinting at the aerodynamic thinking under the skin. The Supra's presence is less about shouting and more about assuredness. You don't need flamboyant chrome or gaudy badges to tell you this car can go. It announces itself through proportion, detail, and a purity of form that ages like fine metal and leather. Under the hood, when the hood is lifted and the camera lingers on the machine's surfaces and neat plumbing reside, Toyota's 3.0-liter straight-six, the 7 meters family. In turbo form, the 7M GTE is a marvel of its era. Dual overhead cams, 24 valves, and a turbocharger breathing, producing power figures that, on paper, don't jump off the page by modern standards, but in practice deliver a heady mix of usable torque and a linear power band that reward thoughtful throttles. This engine doesn't scream for attention, it rewards action. The turbo spool is the kind that builds patience into exhaustion. You feel the pull, you plan. Then the car moves with a smoothness that feels both surgical and soulful. You can choose to view the Supra as two different personalities depending on the badge trunk. The naturally aspirated 7M GE is refined and beautifully an engine that sings at higher revs and offers a more classical GT demeanor. The turbocharged 7M GTE, though, is the one that catches. Its torque arrives with authority, and the way it changes a driver's posture from casual observer to engaged pilot is almost architectural. You start to understand why tuners, racers, and quiet enthusiasts alike fell in love with this platform. It's a superb baseline for modifications, but at its core it's already well sorted. Slip inside and you're greeted by a cockpit that feels... Toyota didn't overload this interior with... They gave you what you did. Clear gauges, ergonomically placed controls, and seats that remember long miles without claim. The driving position is low and the steering has a certain communicative clarity, and the suspension, double wishbones front. The car planted without ever making you feel like you're fighting it. TEMS Toyota's electronic modulated suspension added a layer of technological sophistication, letting the Supra adapt between comfort and a firmer, sportier setup. It's a subtle trick. The car can be a comfortable long-distance cruiser one and a taut, responsive companion on a twisty road the next. Think about the era for a second. Late 1980s, automotive engineering was shifting. Electronic controls, turbocharging, and computer-managed systems were moving into mainstream performance. Toyota chose to channel these advances into something elegant rather than ostentatious. The Supra's electronics are full. Its options are full. Things like an oil cooler, limited slip differential on certain packages, and, on turbos, an integrated rear spoiler and additional coolers show that Toyota meant business without shitting. Driving a well-kept 1989 Supra is a study in the turbo model has a torque curve that invites you to use gear selection intelligently. It teaches patience with the boost and rewards precision with acceleration that feels muscular yet civilized. The manual transmission, usually the 5-speed W58 on naturally aspirated models or the robust R154 on turbo variants, connects you physically to the engine's rhythm. Shifts are tactile, measured, and satisfying in a way that makes you want to string together corners just to feel the gearboxes. If you opt for the automatic, the 4-speed A340E is smooth and suits the car's GT feature. Though true enthusiasts will tell you a manual Supra is where the machine truly is. Beyond the mechanical pleasures, the Supra has a cultural story. It was the first generation to stand alone as a Supra, no longer a Celica derivative, and that independence. The A70 bridged gaps between. In Japan, it had different trims and sometimes different ones. In North America, it became a statement that Toyota could make a serious sports coupe. It was a chapter in Toyota's evolution from reliable commuters to a maker that could also craft machines with temperament and flair. Now imagine capturing this on the Targa roof slide back, shafts of light cutting across leather, a cold start where metallics, and the first cough of ignition filled the aim. A close-up of the CT26 turbo's plumbing as condensation beads on polished metal. The camera sliding along the fender, finding reflects, while a rolling soundtrack mixes with the engine note. That sonic and visual poetry is what makes the Supra a favorite for short, cinematic fears. It's a car that looks purposeful whether it's being driven or simply parked under soft heaving light. Talk to owners and you'll hear a litany of affectionate observations. How reliable these cars can be with proper care. How the 7 meters loves attention to oil quality and timing belt mates. How the R154 gearbox can take more than its fair share of power if treated right. You learn the water pump and timing belt intervals memorized like sacred. The importance of a functioning oil cooler on turbos, and how a respectful tune can unlock a very sweet personality in the engine. These hands-on maintenance notes turn the Supra from mere showpiece to daily companion. The tuning world added another chapter to this machinery. The platform is forgiving and bolt-ins, intercooler updates, ARP studs, improved fuel management systems. These are the lingua franca of a community that wanted more from Toyota Supra. The 7M GTE responds predictably and beautifully. 2 senses, most, improved fueling, and cooling modifications can yield significant performance gains without destroying the engine's character. But the Supra's charm is that it doesn't diminish. It rewards. A modest, respectful build that maintains drivability often wins more hearts than a full explosion. Driving guys deserve a dedicated moment because they're the reason you fall in love. The Supra carries weight with intention. It's not about being the lightest car. It's about managing mass with suspension geometry that understands the road. The double wishbone setup front and rear means steering feel is communicative and predictable. Cornering is an exercise in the car's, the body, and the steering input translates into a composed, controlled arc. Understeer is present if you're lazy with throttle entry, but it is a polite understeer, one that suggests coaxing rather than movement. Slide into the gas in the right corner, and the chassis runs. The LSD does its quiet work, and you feel rewarded by the car's composure. The Supra's aesthetics are a study in 90s sports car design that has aged far better than many of its peers. Pop-up headlights now, a lost art due to regulatory changes, give the front an animated quality. The proportions are a long hood that suggests performance, a cabin pushed back for driver engagement, and a rear end that reads purposeful without needing dramatic ornamentation. Interior trims and color combinations from the era have become desirable for their retro authenticity. Bursts, deep rims, and straightforward gauges that favor legibility over fashion. Materials age with dignity. Leather softens, plastics retain their textures, and the overall package feels like something designed for longevity. But no car is without its. The Supra's electronics can be fussy as they age. Vacuum hoses and connectors become brittle with time, and finding original parts for some trim bits can be a treasure. Some of the engine's sensors and early electronic ignition components, while cutting edge in their day, may need careful attention. That's part of the ownership ritual. The deep satisfaction of tracking down a specific clip or connector and restoring it. The joy of reconditioning a throttle body or finding a rare trace. For many owners, the act of preserving these details is as enjoyable as driving the car itself. When you place the Supra in the context of its contemporaries, the Nissan 3006, the Porsche 944, the Ford Mustang of the era, you begin to appreciate its specifics. It isn't the loudest performer on paper, but it's the most considered. Reliability, married to engaging decks. It won't outfling a modern turbo monster, but it will teach you technique. It's a car you can trust to eat miles on a weekend and still have enough in the tank to attack a canyon road on Monday. That duality is rare, and it's why the A70 attracts a devoted fan. There's also the story of rarity and production of the A70 wasn't astronomical. These cars weren't everywhere, which gives them an understated cachet today. When you see a clean, unrestored 1989 Supra parked under a chestnut tree, you realize why collectors and enthusiasts lean toward this generation. Its scarcity means that the well-documented examples, those with service histories and original part, carry a premium. Yet that premium is less about bragging rights and more about stewardship. People buying these cars want to continue a lineage of care. Let's talk practicalities for a moment, because romanticism is nice, but owning one requires a practical eye. If you're looking to buy, prioritize a car with documented maintenance, timing belt and water pump services completed on schedule, clean service records, and evidence of head gasket care. Inspect the turbo model for oil leaks and booster-related modifications that may have been poorly executed. Check the suspension mounting points and rear subframe for any evidence of fatigue or rust. Age is an honest storyteller, and it shows where owners neglected the structure. Verify the gearbox operation. The R154 is popular for a reason, but it isn't indestructible. And don't dismiss the naturally aspirated model. They offer a smoother, less frantic driving experience that still captures the Supra ethos. If you plan to modify, think in terms of balance. Strengthen the drivetrain where necessary. Uprated clutch, improved cooling, and some attention to fueling and ignition systems. Sensible suspension upgrades, better bushings, fresh dampers, a subtle sway bar transform the car's feel far more than peak horsepower numbers. And for audio lovers, the Supra's cabin is a sanctum. A tasteful sound system can make long drive feel cinematic without overwhelming the natural soundtrack of the engine. There's an emotional economy to the Supra that's worth mentioning. This car inspires loyalty. You meet owners who will tell you about the first time they drove one, the smell of the interior on a hot day, the cadence of the transmission as if it were a beloved song. These aren't just functional memory. They are rituals of attachment. The Supra becomes woven into their stories. A first long road trip, a weekend that turned into an odyssey, the car that taught them how to drive. Enthusiast communities around the A70 are generous with advice and part. And when a rare piece appears in a forum, people in far-flung places coordinate to keep these cars alive. The aftermarket for the A70 is vibrant but tasteful. You'll find everything from period-correct wheels that restore original stance to modern suspension kits that retain the car's character while improving handling. Engine parts are available because the 7 Meters family has an active following. Firms that specialize in rebuilds and performance upgrades understand the architecture of the engine and trade on that expertise. Even so, much of the joy comes from retaining originality, keeping that patina, those early decals, the original stereo that clicks like a mechanical metronome. Let's indulge in a scene. You are on a coastal road at dawn. The surface is cool. The air carries salt and citrus, and the Supra sits with its silhouette mirrored in a shallow puddle. You close the target top, feel the latch engage, and the cabin becomes a private theater. The engine turns over, settles into a low idle, and you ease the Supra into first. The turbo model breathes quietly. The boost gauge sits at the edge of anticipation. The gears, the world stretches, and as the road unfolds, the car's temperament becomes clear. It is not a car that demands domination. It asks for respect, patience, and then it will grant you moments of sublime speed that feel like a secret shared between the driver and machine. Over the years, the Supra's reputation has morphed. For a long time, it was a well-kept secret, appreciated by those who frequented car meets and swapped knowledge in dimly lit garages. Then the tuner scene in pop culture nudged the Supra into a wider spotlight, and the car's desirability increased. Movies and media gave it moments of fame. But the heart of the Supra's appeal remains in the quieter place, the long drive, the careful restoration, the afternoons spent polishing a hood until the reflection is a mirror of patience. Collectors love certain trim. Targa roof models with original interiors command attention. Turbo models with documented service histories are prized because the turbo engines, when properly respected, can live long and rewarding lives. Clean, low-mileage examples with factory options intact are the holy grail for many. But there's a distinct pleasure to finding a well-loved daily that's cared for rather than hoarded. Those cars carry stories. They have dents and faded spots that read like a biography. They are alive. There are deeper technical joys too. The Supra's DOHC 24-valve layout gives it a breathing efficiency that translates into a lovely top-end character on the non-turbo 7M. The Turbo 7M GTE's wastegate and turbo plumbing are a lesson in Latati's engineering. Fuel injection systems of the era respond well to careful tuning. And the ECU mapping, while primitive by modern standard, is responsive to sensible changes. Mechanics who specialize in these cars often speak reverently about cam timing, valve clearance, and the haunted poetry of an engine that has always been built to last. Let's not romanticize. Without acknowledging realities, parts can be expensive in some regions, and certain original trim pieces are rarer than you'd expect. But that scarcity is part of what makes the Supra a worthy project for people who love the hunt. For many, restoration is a hobby that keeps the hands engaged and the mind curious. The reward is not just a restored car. It's a restored relationship with a piece of automotive history. The Supra is also a car that plays well in comparison tests because it embodies a philosophy, engineering excellence without pretense. Porsche offered engineering purity and racing pedigree. Nissan's Z-cars offered raw speed. The Supra offered a middle path, a comfortable GT that could become playful with the right encouragement. That middle path is not blandness, it's nuance. It's the difference between a shout and a well-played sentence that changes the tone of a conversation. Consider the social dimension. Supra owners build network. They trade tips about oil grades and oil cooler brackets. They meet at remote service stations to convoy 2 weekend events. And they form a web of knowledge that these cars usable and cherished. That community stewardship ensures that well-maintained Supras aren't just museum pieces. They're alive. Watching a row of a 70 South at a meet is like seeing a family reunion. There's laughter, there's the exchange of parts, and there's a gentle competitiveness that's more about craftsmanship than bragging rights. If you are thinking about making a video or a short film about a 1989 Supra, focus on details that convey both soul and specification. Start with tactile moment, the click of the key, the unlatching of the hood, the hand running along the weave of a hose, the camera catching the faint sheen beneath a valve. Let the engine note be a character. Use long, slow pans to show the proportions, then quick cuts to reveal the tactile controls that invite your fingers. People respond to authenticity, the little scuffs on a door card, the smell of aged leather, the soft squeak of a seat adjust. These are the things that make viewers feel like they're in the car with you, experiencing it rather than being told about it. In a world that sometimes fetishizes raw numbers, the Supra invites a different kind of worship. It asks you to appreciate subtleties, the way a mid-range torque hit rearranges your posture in the interplay between chassis stiffness and suspension compliance, the satisfaction of a perfectly executed heel. This car is a teacher. If you listen, it will teach you to drive with more intention. There's also an unspoken lineage to respect. The A70 paved the way for the later mythic A80, with its twin-turbo 2JZA motor that would become legendary in its own right. But the A70 is not merely a footnote. It is a necessary chapter. It is where Toyota experimented, learned, and matured in building sports. Without the A70's lessons in dynamics, packaging, and customer response, later Supras might have been different. The A70 stands alone and proud. It isn't trying to be its successor's shadow. It is content in its role as a bridge, linking Toyota's practical engineering with genuine sporting intent. For many, owning an A70 becomes an act of preservation. It's a way to keep alive a mechanical philosophy that values craftsmanship, reliability, and the satisfaction of a well-balanced machine. It's also an entry point into a subculture that prizes hands-on knowledge. Whether you keep your Supra largely stock and enjoy the quirks of its original engineering, or you choose to guide it down a tasteful path of modification, the car responds. It rewards curiosity and punishes negligence, but in both outcomes it, and that education is a rare commodity in modern motoring. Jump finally. A dusk drive through an old industrial section of town. The Supra's taillights glow like twin embers through the haze. You ease onto an empty stretch of ribbon road, and the world narrows to the horizon and the road's rhythm. In the mirror, the city lights blur, and the Supra's silhouette is a quiet whisper against the night. You push the throttle and feel the turbo come alive. Not a violent explosion, but a steady, honest acceleration that pulls you forward like the beginning of a good story. That sensation is the Supra's, a promise kept, a machine that was engineered with care, and a car that still, decades later, knows how to make you feel alive. If you listen carefully, you'll hear more than machinery. You'll hear the echo of an era when cars were instruments of engagement as much transport. You'll hear the measured heartbeat of a straight six that was built to last, and the quiet chorus of owners who make it last. The 1989 Toyota Supra is more than metal and rubber. It's an invitation. It asks for attention, it requires care, and, in return, it offers moments of driving that are quietly profound. This is not a story of excess. It is a story of thoughtful engineering, of subtlety, and of a car that found the balance between comfort and performance. It will not shout its virtues in a crowded room, but if you stand close and pay attention, it will tell you everything you need to know. It will teach you patience, reward precision, and, on a clear road at dawn, remind you why you ever fell in love with driving in the first place.